Hey everyone, today we're playing with a bunch of zany penguins determined to conquer the world. To help them with their plans, players will have to use a bit of strategy and a lot of low blows. Let me show you how to play. Because of global warming, the ice cap is melting day by day and penguins don't have enough space for themselves, so they are looking for other places to expand. In the game Zany Penguins, they are targeting 5 different strategic zones, each associated with a different color. Antarctica in blue, the desert in yellow, the city in pink, the jungle in green, and even the moon in black. Each zone is made of 18 cards numbered from 1 to 9, and every value has a specific number of cards per zone. For instance, there are always 4 cards of value 5, but only 1 card of value 9 in each zone. The goal of Zany Penguins is to have the most points at the end of the game, but the way to score points is a bit tricky. You'll not score points for the cards that you play during the game, but for the cards that you still have in your hand at the end of the game. So during the game, players will play cards in front of them, and at the end of the game we'll have to check which player has the highest total value for a specific zone, and that player will be able to score all the cards of that zone that he still has in his hands. All of the players will only score the lowest value cards for that zone that they still have in their hands. Don't worry, we'll come back to the scoring part a little later in the video. For now, just know that a player needs to play cards and to keep cards in his hand to score points for that given zone. The setup of the game is extremely easy. Each player is dealt 18 cards, placed face down to form his personal reinforcement deck. If there is less than 5 players, all remaining cards are put back in the box without looking at them. Each player then draws 2 cards, the setup is done, the game is ready to start. A game turn always starts with players drawing 2 new cards from their own reinforcement decks. During the first turn of the game, everyone will then hold 4 cards, the 2 cards they got during setup and the 2 cards they've just drawn. Now comes the infiltration phase. Every player must choose and pass a card to the player on his left and another one to the player on his right. This means that everyone passes 2 cards but also receives 2 cards. Finally, for the last phase of a turn, players disembark their troops, which means that every player chooses a card to play in front of him. That card will help to determine who owns the majority in each zone. Once everyone has chosen a card, all the cards are revealed at the same time and placed in front of their owners. Then a new turn begins, everyone draws 2 new cards, passes 2 cards to his neighbors and plays a card. The entire game lasts for 8 turns, then it will be time to tally up the score. The cards played in front of the players help determine who owns the majority in each zone. In case of a tie, the tied players are all considered to own the majority. Then each color is called one by one. The player who owns the majority for that color can keep all the cards from that zone he still has in his hands. Players who don't own the majority will only keep in hand their lowest value cards of that zone. Players who haven't played a single card from that specific zone will get nothing. They will have to discard all the cards from that zone that they might have in hand. Once all 5 colors have been called, players will just have to add up the value of the cards they still have in their hand. The player with the most points wins the game. Let's illustrate all of this and focus only on those 2 players to see what they will score at the end of the game. With a value of 17, John has the majority in Antarctica. Jenny only has 4 for that zone. John can keep all of his Antarctica cards still in his hands, while Jenny has to discard the 7 and keep the lowest value card, which is a 4. Jenny has a value of 9 for the desert, while John has nothing for that zone. Jenny can keep all of her desert cards in her hands, while John will have to discard them all since he has not played a single desert card during the game. Jenny has the majority in the city. She keeps all of her city cards still in her hand, while John only keeps his lowest value city cards from his. John and Jenny are tied in the jungle, so they both have majority for that zone and can both keep their jungle cards. Finally, John has the majority on the moon. He keeps all of his moon cards, while Jenny only keeps her lowest, which doesn't affect her since she doesn't have any moon cards anyway. Finally, they both add up the value of the cards in their hands, and with a value of 38 points against 31, Jenny is the winner. Some cards grant special powers to add a bit of tension during the game. All the value 1 cards show the Ninja Twins symbol. When a player plays the Ninja Twins, he can play 2 cards at once during the next turn. The cards of value 2 represent the Kamikaze. When a Kamikaze is played, all 7, 8 and 9 cards played during this turn are immediately destroyed. Finally, the value 3 cards are for the Spotter. When a player plays a Spotter, he will be able to play after everyone else during the following turn. This will allow him to see what everyone is playing before choosing his own card. One last word regarding the two-player game in which two virtual players are added in between the two real players to add a touch of unknown and surprises during the game. The feeling is then close to a 3 to 5 player game where no one is safe from an opponent screwing your plan at the very last turn by giving you a low value card or by stealing a majority right under your nose. But that's the game, as you'll experience by playing Zany Penguins. So have fun with these wacky birds, and I'll see you in another episode with another board game. Take care.